A millionaire watched through his office window as his nanny stepped between his son and three older boys in the park. What happened next made him question everything he thought he knew about the people working in his home. By the end of this story, her reward will leave you speechless. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Marcus Chen stood in his corner office on the 42nd floor, phone pressed to his ear, barely listening to the quarterly reports his CFO was rattling off. His attention had drifted to the window, where Central Park stretched out below like a green carpet rolled across Manhattan. He'd built his tech empire from nothing, turning a college dorm room idea into a billion-dollar company. But lately, the view was the only thing that brought him any peace. His son was down there somewhere, 7-year-old Daniel, probably feeding ducks at the pond or climbing on the Alice in Wonderland statue. With him would be Elena Vasquez, the nanny who'd been with their family for 8 months now. Marcus barely knew her, if he was being honest. His late wife, Sarah, had hired her before the cancer took her last year. Elena was quiet, kept to herself, always had Daniel home by 6:30. That was all Marcus needed to know. "Marcus, are you there?" He blinked. "Yeah, Jim, send me the full breakdown by email. I need to cut this short." He ended the call and loosened his tie. The office felt suffocating today. Maybe it was the anniversary approaching, 1 year since Sarah's death. Maybe it was the guilt that gnawed at him every time he realized he'd worked through another dinner, another bedtime, another chance to actually be a father to his son. His assistant knocked and entered. "Mr. Chen, your 3 o'clock is here. Cancel it," Marcus said, still staring out the window. "Cancel everything for today." 20 minutes later, he was walking through Central Park, hands in his pockets, no destination in mind. The September air carried that first hint of autumn, and the park was crowded with tourists, joggers, and families. He found himself gravitating toward the playground near 72nd Street, the one closest to his penthouse. Daniel liked the big climbing structure there. That's when he saw them. Elena stood near the swings, Daniel beside her. But they weren't alone. 3 boys, maybe 10 or 11 years old, had formed a semicircle around them. Even from 50 yards away, Marcus could read the body language. The boys were leaning in, aggressive. Daniel had moved behind Elena, gripping the back of her jacket. One of the boys shoved Daniel's shoulder, not hard, but enough to make the point. Marcus started walking faster. Elena raised her hand, palm out, speaking to the boys. Her voice didn't carry, but her posture was calm, controlled. One of the boys, the tallest, with a red backpack, said something that made the other 2 laugh. He pointed at Daniel, then mimicked crying. Rubbing his fists against his eyes, Marcus was close enough now to hear fragments. "Baby needs his mommy. Can't even throw a ball." Daniel's face was red, tears streaming down his cheeks, but he wasn't making a sound. That broke something in Marcus. His son had learned not to cry out loud. When had that happened? Elena stepped forward, positioning herself completely between the boys and Daniel. "That's enough," she said firmly. "You need to leave him alone." "Or what?" Red Backpack sneered. "You gonna tell our moms?" "I'm going to ask you to think about why you're doing this," Elena said. Her voice was steady, but there was steel underneath. "You're bigger than him, older. Does it make you feel strong to pick on someone smaller?" "He's weird," one of the other boys said. "He just sits there reading books. He doesn't even try to play with anyone. Maybe he doesn't want to play with people who are mean to him." Elena replied, "Would you?" Red Backpack's face twisted. "Whatever. Come on, guys. This is boring." But before they turned to leave, he made one last grab for Daniel's backpack, yanking it off his shoulders. Daniel stumbled forward with a small cry. That's when Elena moved. She didn't yell, didn't make a scene. She simply stepped forward, caught the backpack mid-air as Red Backpack tossed it to one of his friends and held it firmly. "Give it back. Make me." Elena's expression didn't change. She pulled out her phone with her free hand. "I have photos of all 3 of you. I know you come here after school most days. I can either talk to your parents right now, or you can walk away and we can all forget this happened. Your choice. You have 5 seconds. The boys looked at each other. The threat was real enough. Red Backpack snatched at the backpack one more time, but Elena didn't let go. 4 seconds, whatever. "Let's go!" The boys scattered, disappearing into the playground crowd. Elena knelt down immediately, helping Daniel put his backpack on. She was checking him over, asking if he was hurt, wiping his tears with a tissue from her pocket. Daniel shook his head, but he was still crying silently, his small body shaking. Marcus stood frozen 20 feet away, watching as Elena pulled his son into a hug. She didn't say, "Don't cry" or "Be brave" or any of the things Marcus probably would have said. She just held him and let him cry into her shoulder, one hand rubbing slow circles on his back. "It's okay," she murmured. "You're safe. I've got you." Something twisted in Marcus's chest. When was the last time he'd hugged his son like that? When was the last time he'd even been there when Daniel needed him? After a few minutes, Daniel pulled back, scrubbing at his eyes with his sleeves. Elena handed him another tissue. "You know what I think?" she said. "I think we've earned some ice cream. What do you say?" Daniel nodded, managing a small smile. "And Daniel?" Elena's voice was gentle but serious. "Those boys were wrong. There's nothing weird about liking books. Some of the smartest, bravest people in the world love to read. Don't let anyone make you feel bad about being who you are." "Okay," Daniel whispered. They started walking toward the park exit, hand in hand. Marcus watched them go, his feet rooted to the ground. He'd come to the park on impulse, trying to escape the suffocating weight of his office, his grief, his guilt. He hadn't expected to see this. Hadn't expected to see someone protecting his son with the kind of fierce, unconditional care that he should have been providing. Elena didn't know he'd been watching. She'd done all of that simply because it was the right thing to do, because Daniel needed her, because she cared. Not for recognition, not for a bonus, not because Marcus was standing there with his checkbook ready. She'd done it because she loved his son. Marcus finally started walking, trailing behind them at a distance. He watched as Elena stopped at a food cart, bought Daniel a blue raspberry ice pop, even though it would definitely spoil his dinner, and then sat with him on a bench overlooking the pond. She didn't check her phone, didn't seem impatient or distracted. She just sat there, letting Daniel eat his ice cream and watching the ducks glide across the water. His phone buzzed. His assistant, Mr. Chen, "The board meeting has been rescheduled for tomorrow morning. Do you need the files sent over?" Marcus typed back, "I'll review them tonight," but he didn't move from where he stood. He stayed there, watching Elena and Daniel, thinking about the woman who'd been in his home for 8 months, who he barely spoke to beyond logistical details, who knew his son better than he did. What else didn't he know about her? What kind of person drops everything to protect someone else's child like that? Who was Elena Vasquez, really? And more importantly, what was he going to do about the fact that she was doing his job better than he was? Marcus didn't go home that night until after 9. He'd returned to the office, sat at his desk, and stared at his computer screen without really seeing it. The quarterly reports Jim had sent over remained unopened. Instead, he found himself Googling things like signs your child is being bullied and how to talk to your son about emotions. The search results made him feel worse. Had he missed all of this? The articles talked about withdrawal, reluctance to go to school, changes in behavior. Daniel had been quieter lately, hadn't he? Or had he always been quiet, and Marcus just hadn't noticed because he was never around? When he finally walked through the front door of the penthouse, the apartment was dark, except for a light in the kitchen. Elena was there wiping down the counters. She looked up, startled. "Mr. Chen, I didn't expect you home yet. Daniel's asleep. He had dinner at 6:30, finished his homework, and I read him 2 chapters of his book." Marcus nodded, setting his briefcase down. "Which book?" Elena paused, clearly surprised by the question. "The Chronicles of Narnia. He's on The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. He loves it." Marcus didn't know that. Didn't know his son was reading Narnia. Didn't know what chapter they were on. Didn't know anything. "That's good," he said weakly. "Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story." Elena folded the dish towel, placing it neatly on the counter. "Is there anything you need before I go? I can prepare something for you if you're hungry." "No, I'm fine. Thank you." He hesitated, then added, "How was the park today?" Something flickered across Elena's face. Caution, maybe, or concern. "It was nice. We went to the playground and then got ice cream. I hope that's all right." "I know it was close to dinner, but it's fine," Marcus interrupted. He wanted to ask about the boys, about what happened, but something stopped him. If he revealed he'd been watching, she might feel uncomfortable, like she couldn't trust him. Or worse, she might think he was checking up on her, doubting her abilities. Elena picked up her bag from the chair. "All right then. I'll see you tomorrow morning." 8 o'clock? "Elena, wait." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "How is he? Daniel, I mean, really, is he happy?" The question hung in the air between them. Elena set her bag back down slowly, her dark eyes studying him with an intensity that made Marcus uncomfortable. She was younger than him, maybe 30, with an open, honest face that didn't hide much. Right now, it showed careful consideration, like she was weighing how much truth to give him. "He's adjusting," she said finally. "Losing his mother was hard, really hard. He's a sensitive kid, thoughtful. He feels things deeply. Does he talk about her?" "Sometimes, usually when we're reading, or when something reminds him of her. Last week we saw a woman wearing the same perfume, and he got very quiet for the rest of the afternoon." Elena's voice was gentle, not accusatory, but Marcus felt the weight of it anyway. "He misses you too." Marcus looked away. "I know I should be home more. It's just, the company is in a critical phase, and Mr. Chen," Elena's voice was quiet but firm, "you don't have to explain yourself to me. I'm just the nanny. But if you're asking my opinion, Daniel doesn't need explanations. He just needs you." The words hit harder than Marcus expected. He opened his mouth to respond, but Elena was already picking up her bag again, clearly regretting her candor. "I'm sorry. That was out of line. It's not my place to—" "No," Marcus said. "You're right." "You're absolutely right." Elena gave him a small, sad smile. "Good night, Mr. Chen." After she left, Marcus walked down the hallway to Daniel's room. He pushed the door open quietly, letting the light from the hallway spill across the hardwood floor. His son was asleep, curled on his side, one arm wrapped around a stuffed lion that Sarah had given him. The book, the lion, the witch, and the wardrobe sat on the nightstand, a bookmark tucked inside. Marcus stepped into the room, moving carefully so he wouldn't wake him. Daniel looked so small in the bed, so vulnerable. His face was peaceful in sleep, but there were still traces of dried tears on his cheeks. From this afternoon, or from crying himself to sleep? Marcus sat down on the edge of the bed, something he hadn't done in months, maybe longer. He reached out and gently brushed Daniel's hair back from his forehead. His son stirred slightly but didn't wake. "I'm sorry," Marcus whispered. "I'm so sorry." The next morning, Marcus did something he hadn't done since Sarah died. He cancelled his early meeting and had breakfast with Daniel. Elena arrived at 8 to find them both in the kitchen, Daniel eating cereal while Marcus attempted to make scrambled eggs. "Dad's making breakfast," Daniel announced. Eyes wide, like this was a miracle on par with Christmas. "I see that," Elena said, hiding a smile as Marcus scraped burnt eggs off the pan. "I'm a little out of practice," Marcus admitted. "Do you want me to—" "No, I've got it." He dumped the burnt batch and started over, this time on lower heat. "Daniel, tell me about school." "What are you learning about?" Daniel looked at his father like he'd sprouted a second head. We're doing multiplication tables in math, and reading the BFG in English class." "The BFG? What's that?" "It's by Roald Dahl," Elena supplied quietly from where she was organizing Daniel's backpack. "About a big friendly giant?" "Right." Marcus flipped the eggs, which were actually starting to look like eggs this time. "Do you like it?" "Yeah, the giant catches dreams and puts them in bottles. The good dreams he gives to children, but the bad dreams, the nightmares, he keeps locked away." Daniel pushed his cereal around with his spoon. "I wish someone could do that for real." Marcus's hand stilled on the spatula. "You've been having nightmares?" Daniel shrugged, not meeting his eyes. "Sometimes. Why didn't you tell me?" Another shrug. "You're always working. The simple honesty of it cut deeper than any accusation could have. Marcus plated the eggs, slightly overcooked but edible, and sat down across from his son. "Daniel, look at me." His son looked up, those eyes so much like Sarah's it hurt. "I know I haven't been around much, and I know that's been hard on you. But I'm here now, okay? If you're having nightmares, or if something's bothering you, or if you just want to talk, I'm here. You can always tell me." Daniel nodded slowly, but Marcus could see the skepticism there. Words were cheap. His son had heard promises before. "How about this?" Marcus said. "Starting today, I'm going to be home for dinner every night. And on Saturdays, we'll do something together. Just you and me. Whatever you want." "Really?" A tiny spark of hope appeared in Daniel's expression. "Really?" Elena was watching from the doorway, her face carefully neutral, but Marcus thought he saw approval in her eyes. Or maybe that was just what he wanted to see. After breakfast, Marcus walked Daniel to the building's entrance, where the school bus picked him up. It was something Elena usually did, but this morning Marcus wanted to do it himself. Daniel's hand felt small in his as they stood on the sidewalk waiting. "Dad?" Daniel looked up at him. "Those boys from the park yesterday." "They go to my school." Marcus's jaw tightened. "They do?" "Yeah, they're in 5th grade. They always make fun of me at recess." Daniel's voice got quieter. "They say I'm weird because I like reading instead of playing kickball. There's nothing weird about liking books, Daniel. Smart people read. That's what Elena said." The bus turned the corner, rumbling toward them. "She's really nice, Dad. She always helps me when things are hard." "I know she is," Marcus said. Something was forming in his mind, a realization that had been building since yesterday afternoon. "Daniel, get on the bus. I'll see you tonight for dinner, okay?" "Okay." Daniel climbed the bus steps, then turned back. "Dad?" "Thanks for breakfast." Marcus watched the bus pull away, then headed back inside. Elena was in the living room, tidying up the newspapers Marcus had left scattered on the coffee table. "Elena, can we talk for a minute?" She straightened, hands folded in front of her. "Of course." Marcus gestured to the couch, and they both sat down. Now that the moment was here, he wasn't sure how to begin. "I was in the park yesterday," he said finally. "I saw what happened with those boys." Elena's eyes widened slightly. "Oh, I was going to tell you, but I didn't want to worry you unnecessarily. They're just kids being kids. I handled it. I know you did. That's not what this is about." Marcus leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Elena, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. How long has this been going on?" "The bullying?" She hesitated, clearly torn between protecting Daniel's privacy and being truthful. "A few weeks. Maybe a month. He didn't tell me at first. I noticed bruises on his arms, asked him about it. He said he fell, but he wouldn't look at me." She shook her head. "I started paying more attention. The boys usually leave him alone when I'm right there, but yesterday they were bolder." "Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried to," Elena said softly. 3 weeks ago I mentioned that Daniel seemed to be having trouble at school. You said you'd talk to him about it, but then your trip to Singapore came up and—" She trailed off. Marcus closed his eyes. He remembered that conversation now, vaguely. He'd been on his way out the door, phone in one hand, briefcase in the other. Elena had said something about school, and he'd brushed it off, promising to deal with it later. Later had never come. "I'm not trying to make you feel guilty, Mr. Chen," Elena added quickly. "I know you're doing your best. Running a company, raising a son alone, it's a lot." "It's not enough," Marcus said. "My best isn't enough. Daniel deserves better. He deserves someone who actually pays attention, who's there when he needs them." He looked at Elena directly. "He deserves someone like you." Elena looked uncomfortable. "I'm just doing my job." "No," Marcus said. "You're doing my job, and you're doing it better than I ever could." The following week brought changes that surprised everyone, including Marcus himself. He started leaving the office at 5:30, ignoring the raised eyebrows from his executives. Conference calls got rescheduled. Business dinners were declined. For the first time in years, his son became the priority instead of an afterthought. On Wednesday evening, Marcus came home to find Elena helping Daniel with a science project at the dining room table. They'd built a volcano out of papier-mâché, and Daniel's hands were covered in paint. "Dad! Look, we're making Mount Vesuvius. Tomorrow we get to make it erupt with baking soda and vinegar." Marcus set down his briefcase and rolled up his sleeves. "Can I help?" Elena started to stand. "I should get out of your way." "Stay," Marcus said, "please. I have no idea what I'm doing with papier-mâché." They worked together for the next hour, the three of them painting the volcano, adding tiny plastic trees around the base, creating a miniature Pompeii out of clay. Daniel chattered non-stop about Romans and volcanic ash, his enthusiasm infectious. Marcus found himself laughing at Elena's attempt to sculpt a clay citizen that looked more like a blob with arms. "I'm an artist." "Clearly," she said, holding up the misshapen figure. "It's abstract," Marcus offered. "It's terrible," Daniel giggled. "But I love it." Something warm settled in Marcus's chest as he watched his son laugh. When was the last time he'd heard that sound? Really heard it? Not just passing through a room while Daniel was playing with Elena? After Daniel went to bed, Marcus found Elena in the kitchen, preparing her things to leave. "Thank you for today," he said. "For letting me be part of that. You don't have to thank me for spending time with your own son, Mr. Chen." "Marcus," he said. "Please, Mr. Chen makes me feel like I'm in a business meeting." Elena smiled slightly. "Marcus, then." He leaned against the counter, watching her organize Daniel's lunch for tomorrow with practiced efficiency. "Can I ask you something personal?" She looked up, cautious. "Okay, why did you become a nanny? You're clearly educated, capable. You could do anything." Elena was quiet for a moment, her hand stilling on the lunchbox. "My mother was a nanny. She raised me while taking care of other people's children. I grew up in their homes, did my homework at their kitchen tables, played with their kids." She closed the lunchbox with a soft click. She worked for a family in Connecticut for 15 years. When she got sick, pancreatic cancer, they paid for her treatment, all of it. They visited her in the hospital, brought her favorite foods, sat with her when I had to work. They treated her like family. "I'm sorry," Marcus said quietly. "She passed 2 years ago. But before she did, she told me that taking care of children was the most important work anyone could do. That every child deserves someone who sees them, really sees them, and makes them feel safe." Elena's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "So that's what I do. I see them. Daniel and all the children I've cared for. I make sure they know someone's paying attention." Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. "He's lucky to have you. He needs his father more than he needs me. Maybe he needs both." Friday afternoon, Marcus left work at 3 o'clock. His assistant nearly fell out of her chair when he announced he was taking a half day. He arrived at Daniel's school, just as classes were letting out, parking his Tesla among the minivans and SUVs. Parents clustered near the entrance, chatting while they waited. Marcus spotted Elena immediately. She stood slightly apart from the other nannies, eyes fixed on the school doors. When Daniel emerged, backpack bouncing against his shoulders, Elena waved. But then Marcus saw what she saw. 3 boys were following Daniel. The same 3 from the park. Red backpack and his crew. Marcus started walking toward them, but Elena was faster. She'd already closed the distance, positioning herself near Daniel as he reached her. "Hey, book boy," Red backpack called out. "Where are you going?" "Need your babysitter to walk you home." Daniel's shoulders hunched and he grabbed Elena's hand. Other parents were starting to notice conversations dying down as they watched. "That's enough," Elena said firmly. "Or what? You're going to take our picture again?" Red backpack smirked. "My mom said you were being dramatic. Said boys will be boys, did she?" Elena's voice was ice. "And where is your mother now?" A woman detached herself from a group of parents, walking over with an annoyed expression. She wore designer yoga clothes and carried a handbag that probably cost more than Elena made in a month. "Is there a problem here?" "Your son has been bullying mine," Marcus said, stepping up beside Elena. He didn't raise his voice, but something in his tone made several parents turn to look. "This is the 2nd time this week." The woman looked Marcus up and down, taking in his tailored suit and Rolex. Her expression shifted slightly, recalculating. "I'm sure the boys were just playing. You know how it is. No, I don't, Marcus said. Explain it to me. Connor, come here. Red Backpack Connor trudged over to his mother. Tell this man you were just playing around. Connor glanced at his friends, then at the growing audience of parents. We were just messing around. It's not a big deal. Show them your arms, Daniel, Marcus said quietly. Daniel looked up at his father, uncertain. Marcus nodded encouragingly. Slowly, Daniel pulled up his sleeves, revealing the purple and yellow bruises that dotted his forearms. The crowd went silent. Even Connor's mother looked uncomfortable. That's from playing around? Marcus's voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath. My son comes home with bruises, has nightmares, and cries himself to sleep because these boys tell him he's weird for liking books. That's just boys being boys. Connor, did you do this? The woman stared at her son, genuine shock on her face now. Connor's defiance crumbled. It wasn't just me. We all... Get in the car, now! She pointed toward the parking lot, and Connor slunk away, his friends following quickly. The woman turned back to Marcus, her face flushed. I apologize. I had no idea it was this serious. Connor will be punished, I assure you. I don't want him punished, Marcus said, surprising everyone, including himself. I want him to understand why it's wrong. I want him to learn that how we treat people matters. Punishment without understanding doesn't teach anything. The woman nodded stiffly. Of course. Again, I'm very sorry. She hurried after her son. The crowd dispersed slowly, parents ushering their children toward cars, casting curious glances back at Marcus, Elena, and Daniel. When they were finally alone, Daniel looked up at his father with wide eyes. You came to pick me up. I did. But you're always at work. Not anymore, Marcus said. He knelt down to Daniel's level. From now on, I'm going to be here more. For pickups, for homework, for dinner, all of it. I'm sorry it took me so long to figure out what's important. Daniel threw his arms around Marcus's neck, hugging him tight. Marcus held his son, feeling the small body shake with silent sobs. But this time, they were different. Relief, maybe. Or hope. Over Daniel's shoulder, Marcus met Elena's eyes. She was smiling, tears streaming down her face, and in that moment Marcus realized something that terrified and thrilled him in equal measure. He wasn't just grateful to Elena for taking care of his son. He was falling for her. That weekend, Marcus kept his promise. Saturday morning, he took Daniel to the Natural History Museum. They spent hours wandering through the dinosaur exhibits, ate overpriced pizza in the cafeteria, and bought a book about pterodactyls in the gift shop. Daniel talked non-stop the entire time, his previous shyness evaporating as he shared facts about the Cretaceous period and debated whether velociraptors were actually as big as Jurassic. Park made them look. Elena says they were actually only about 3 feet tall. Daniel informed him seriously. With feathers, Elena knows about dinosaurs. Elena knows about everything, Daniel said with absolute certainty. She's the smartest person I know. Except maybe you. You made computers that can think. Not quite, Marcus laughed. But thank you. Sunday, Marcus did something he hadn't done in over a year. He went to the cemetery where Sarah was buried. Daniel came with him carrying a bouquet of sunflowers, her favorite. They stood in front of the simple headstone, and for a long time neither of them spoke. I miss her, Daniel said finally. Me too. Do you think she'd be mad at me? Marcus looked down at his son, surprised. Mad at you? Why would she be mad? Because I like Elena. Daniel's voice was small. Sometimes when Elena reads to me or makes my lunch, I forget about Mom for a little while. And then I remember and I feel bad. Marcus knelt down, taking Daniel's shoulders gently. Your mom would never be mad about that, never. She'd be happy that Elena takes such good care of you. She'd want you to be happy, Daniel. That's all she ever wanted. Really, really. Marcus pulled his son close. And I think your mom would like Elena too. I think they'd be friends. Daniel nodded against his chest. I think so too. They placed the flowers on the grave, said their goodbyes, and walked back to the car hand in hand. As Marcus drove home through the city streets, Daniel chattering about what they should make for dinner, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace and the faint, terrifying flutter of something that felt like happiness, trying to take root again. But there was still one thing he needed to do. One conversation he'd been avoiding because once he had it, everything would change. He needed to talk to Elena about what came next, about the reward she didn't know she'd earned, about the truth he'd been denying to himself for weeks now. Monday morning couldn't come fast enough. Monday morning arrived with rain hammering against the penthouse windows. Marcus stood in his home office, staring at the document he'd drafted over the weekend. 3 pages that would either be the best decision he'd ever made or a complete disaster. His lawyer had reviewed it Sunday night, asking twice if Marcus was certain about this. He was certain. Elena arrived at 8, shaking rain from her umbrella in the entryway. Daniel was already dressed and eating breakfast. Cereal again, because Marcus had burned the eggs on his 3rd attempt. "Good morning," Elena called out, hanging her coat. "Quite the storm out there." Marcus emerged from his office, the document folder in his hand. His heart was pounding in a way that had nothing to do with caffeine. "Elena, before Daniel's bus comes, can we talk? In private?" Her smile faltered slightly. "Of course." They went into his office while Daniel finished breakfast. Elena sat in one of the leather chairs across from his desk, her hands folded in her lap. Marcus noticed she was wearing the same nervous expression she'd had during her interview 8 months ago, the one Sarah had described to him later, saying the young woman seemed anxious but genuine. "Is something wrong?" Elena asked. "If this is about Friday at the school, I'm sorry if I overstepped." "You didn't overstep," Marcus interrupted, sitting down across from her rather than behind his desk. He wanted this conversation to feel equal, not like an employer-employee dynamic. "That's actually part of what I want to talk about." Elena waited, her dark eyes searching his face. Marcus set the folder on the coffee table between them, but didn't open it yet. "When Sarah hired you, I barely paid attention to the interview process. I was drowning in work, trying not to think about the fact that my wife was dying. I signed off on your contract without even reading it. Mr. Chen, Marcus, if you're letting me go, I'm not letting you go." He took a breath. "But I am terminating your current contract." The color drained from Elena's face. "I don't understand." "You just said, because I'm offering you something different." Marcus opened the folder, sliding the documents toward her. "I've spent the past 2 weeks watching you with Daniel. Really watching, and I've realized that you're not just a nanny. You're not just someone who picks him up from school and makes sure he does his homework." Elena's hands trembled slightly as she picked up the papers, scanning the first page. "You protected him when I wasn't there," Marcus continued. "You saw that he was being bullied, and you did something about it. You've been there for every nightmare, every bad day, every moment when he needed someone, and I was too wrapped up in board meetings and profit margins to notice." His voice caught. "You've been the parent I should have been." "That's not true," Elena said quietly. "You've been grieving. You've been trying to keep your company running. You're doing the best you can. My best wasn't good enough. But you—" Marcus gestured at the documents. "Read it. Please." Eleanor's eyes moved across the pages, and Marcus watched as comprehension dawned. Her lips parted in shock, and she looked up at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "You're offering me a permanent position, not as a nanny," she read from the document. "Director of Family Operations, with a salary of $300,000 a year, full benefits, equity in the company, and—" She stopped, her voice breaking. "A college fund for any children I might have in the future? You've given Daniel something I couldn't. Consistency, attention, unconditional support. You've done it without asking for anything in return, without cutting corners, without ever making him feel like he was a burden." Marcus leaned forward. "That's not a job, Elena, that's a calling. And it's worth far more than what I've been paying you." Tears spilled down Elena's cheeks. "I can't accept this. It's too much. It's not enough," Marcus said firmly. "The salary is based on what corporate executives with similar responsibilities make. The equity is standard for senior management. And the college fund?" He smiled slightly. "That's just me being selfish, because I'm hoping you'll stay with us for a very long time. And if you someday have a family of your own, I don't want money to be the reason you'd have to leave." Eleanor set the papers down, with shaking hands, pressing her palms against her eyes. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. There's no pressure. Well, Marcus corrected himself, there's some pressure because I really, really need you to say yes. But take your time. A laugh burst out of Elena, somewhere between a sob and genuine amusement. You're serious about this? Completely. I've also taken the liberty of including a provision that you'd have access to a car service, your own office space in the penthouse, and a flexible schedule so you can pursue your own interests. I know you've been taking online courses in child psychology. With this position, I'd want to fully fund your master's degree if you want to pursue it. Eleanor stared at him like he'd grown a second head. You knew about the courses? I pay attention now, Marcus said softly. Or I'm trying to. I saw the textbooks in your bag last week. You were studying during your lunch break. Elena wiped her eyes, trying to compose herself. Why are you doing this? Marcus had known this question was coming. He'd practiced his answer a dozen times, trying to find words that were honest but professional. But sitting here, watching her cry, seeing the genuine shock on her face, all his prepared speeches evaporated. Because Daniel loves you. Because you've earned it. And because, he stopped himself. The rest of that sentence was dangerous territory. Because I'm starting to love you too. Because when I imagine our future, you're in it. Because the idea of you leaving terrifies me more than any business failure ever could. But he couldn't say that. Not yet, maybe not ever. She worked for him, depended on him for her livelihood. Any romantic feelings he had would be an abuse of power, a complication that could ruin everything. Because it's the right thing to do, he finished lamely. Elena studied him for a long moment, and Marcus had the uncomfortable feeling she could see right through him. But she didn't push. Instead, she picked up the documents again, reading through them more carefully. There's a clause here about decision-making authority, she said. You're giving me equal say in decisions about Daniel's education, healthcare, and general welfare. You know him better than I do right now, Marcus admitted. That won't always be true. I'm working on it. But for now, yes, I trust your judgment. What about your family? Your board of directors? They're going to have questions about why you're giving your nanny equity in a billion-dollar company. They can have all the questions they want. It's my company. Marcus's voice was firm. And you're not just a nanny. Your family. The word hung between them, heavy with meaning. Elena's breath hitched, and fresh tears streamed down her face. Marcus, A crash from the kitchen made them both jump. They rushed out to find Daniel standing in a puddle of orange juice, the glass carton on its side on the floor. I'm sorry. Daniel's voice was panicked. I was trying to pour more and it slipped and... It's okay, buddy, Marcus said, grabbing paper towels. Accidents happen. Elena was already kneeling beside Daniel, checking to make sure he hadn't stepped in any glass. Are you hurt? No, I'm okay. But I made a mess. Messes can be cleaned, Elena said gently, helping him step out of the puddle. Go change your socks. Your shoes got wet. As Daniel ran to his room, Marcus and Elena worked together to clean up the spill. The moment felt strangely domestic, both of them on their hands and knees, wiping up orange juice while rain drummed against the windows. He's been nervous lately, Elena said quietly, jumping at loud noises, apologizing for everything. It's a trauma response from the bullying. How do I help him with that? Time? Consistency? Showing him that mistakes don't lead to punishment or abandonment. Elena wrung out her paper towel into the bucket. You're already doing it, actually. The way you just handled that? 6 months ago, you wouldn't have been here. He would have had to deal with it alone, or I would have handled it. But you were here, you responded calmly. That matters more than you know. Daniel returned with dry socks just as his bus pulled up outside. Marcus walked him down, holding an umbrella over both of them, while Elena stayed behind to finish cleaning. Dad! Daniel looked up at him as they waited for the bus door to open. Are you going to be home for dinner again tonight? Every night, Marcus promised. I told you, that's not changing. Daniel's smile could have lit up the entire city. He hugged Marcus quickly, then bounded onto the bus. As it pulled away, Daniel pressed his face against the window, waving frantically. Marcus waved back, standing in the rain until the bus disappeared around the corner. When he returned to the penthouse, Eleanor had finished cleaning and was gathering her things. The document folder sat on the coffee table where they'd left it. "I'll give you my answer by the end of the week," she said. "Is that all right?" "Take all the time you need." Elena picked up her bag, then hesitated at the door. "Marcus, thank you. Whatever I decide, thank you for seeing me, for recognizing what I do. Most people don't. Most people are idiots," Marcus said, and was rewarded with a genuine laugh. After she left, Marcus stood in his silent penthouse, looking around at the space that had felt like a mausoleum for the past year. Sarah's absence was still everywhere, in the photos on the walls, the books on the shelves, the furniture they'd picked out together. But something had shifted. The grief was still there, would always be there, but it was making room for something new. Hope. The possibility of healing. Maybe even happiness again. His phone buzzed with an email from his CFO, flagged urgent. 3 months ago, he would have dropped everything to respond. Today, he swiped the notification away and went to make himself breakfast. The eggs only burned a little this time. Progress. 3 days passed in a strange limbo. Elena came and went as usual, taking Daniel to school, helping with homework, preparing meals. But there was a new tension in the air, an unspoken question hovering between her and Marcus every time their eyes met. She hadn't mentioned the offer, and Marcus didn't push. On Thursday evening, Marcus came home to find the penthouse unusually quiet. He checked the kitchen, the living room, then heard voices coming from Daniel's bedroom. The door was cracked open and he paused outside, listening. But what if he gets lonely? Daniel's voice was concerned. "Your dad won't be lonely," Elena replied. "He has you, and he's been doing much better lately, don't you think?" "I guess. But you're here too. You make him smile." There was a long pause. "Daniel, if I took a different job, not leaving, just different, would that bother you?" Marcus held his breath. "Would you still live here?" Daniel asked. "Yes, I'd still be here every day. Nothing about us would change." "Then I don't care what your job is called," Daniel said, with the simple logic of a 7-year-old. "As long as you don't leave. I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart. I promise." Marcus backed away from the door quietly, his heart pounding. He went to his office and tried to focus on work, but the words on his screen blurred together. 20 minutes later, Elena knocked softly. "Daniel's in bed," she said. "Can I come in?" "Please." She entered, closing the door behind her. In her hands was the document folder, and Marcus's stomach dropped. The way she was holding it, carefully, formally, felt like bad news. "I've made my decision," Elena said, sitting down across from him. Marcus braced himself. "Okay, I can't accept the position as you've outlined it." There it was. The rejection he'd been dreading. Marcus nodded slowly, trying to keep his expression neutral. "I understand. It was presumptuous of me to assume, because the salary is insulting," Elena interrupted. Marcus blinked. "What? 300,000 for Director of Family Operations?" Elena set the folder on his desk. "Marcus, I researched it. A live-in nanny in Manhattan with my experience makes maybe 70,000 a year. You're offering me more than quadruple that, plus equity, plus benefits that most executives don't even get. It's too much. It's market rate for—" "It's guilt money," Elena said bluntly. "You feel bad about not being there for Daniel, and you're trying to fix it by throwing money at me. But that's not what I want." Marcus felt something crack in his chest. "Then what do you want?" Elena leaned forward, her eyes intense. "I want you to stop treating this like a business transaction. I don't need a fancy title or stock options or a college fund for hypothetical children. I need to know that you understand why I do this work, that you value it for the right reasons." "I do value it," Marcus protested. "Eleanor, you've changed our lives, both of us. How else am I supposed to show you that except by being Daniel's father?" Elena said softly. "By continuing to come home for dinner, by showing up at school when he needs you, by learning who he is and what he loves. That's the payment I want." Not money, though I won't lie, a raise would be nice, she added with a slight smile. But what I really want is to know that I didn't just put a bandage on this family. I want to know that you're actually healing. Marcus stared at her, this woman who'd somehow become essential to his life in the span of a few months, who saw through every defense he put up, who refused to let him hide behind his wealth. You're right, he said finally, about all of it. I was trying to fix things with money because that's what I know how to do. It's easier than admitting that I failed my son, that I let grief turn me into someone Sarah wouldn't recognize. You didn't fail him, Eleanor said firmly. You stumbled. You lost your way for a while, but you found it again. That's what matters. Because of you, no, because you love him. I just reminded you of that. They sat in silence for a moment, the city lights twinkling through the window behind them. Finally, Marcus spoke again. What if we compromise? You accept the position with a salary of $150,000. Fair market value for what you actually do. But the rest, the equity, the benefits, the flexibility, those stay. Not as guilt money, but as an investment in someone I trust to help raise my son. Elena considered this, her head tilted. And the title. You pick it. Whatever makes sense to you. A smile tugged at her lips. How about family care coordinator? It's what I actually do. Coordinate Daniel's care, his schedule, his needs. Done. Marcus extended his hand across the desk. Do we have a deal? Elena shook his hand, her grip firm and warm. We have a deal, but she didn't let go right away. Her fingers tightened around his, and when she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. Marcus, can I tell you something? Off the record, not as your employee. His heart started racing. Of course. These past few weeks, watching you with Daniel, seeing you become the father he needs, it's been the most rewarding part of this job. Not because I made it happen, but because I got to witness it. She paused, seeming to gather courage. You're a good man. Your wife knew that. Daniel knows that. And she stopped, her cheeks flushing. I hope you know that too. Marcus's thumb brushed across her knuckles, a gesture so small and yet so loaded with meaning that they both froze. The air between them felt electric, charged with something neither of them had acknowledged until this moment. Elena, Marcus breathed, and there was so much contained in that single word. Gratitude, longing, fear, hope. She pulled her hand back gently, standing up. I should go. It's late. Wait. Marcus stood too, moving around the desk. Before you do, there's one more thing. The real reward. Marcus, we just agreed. This isn't about the job. He went to a drawer in his desk and pulled out a small velvet box. Elena's eyes widened, and he quickly shook his head. It's not what you think. I'm not that presumptuous. He opened the box to reveal a delicate silver necklace with a single charm, a tiny book with a heart on its cover. I had this made for you, Marcus said, because you taught Daniel that loving books doesn't make him weird. You taught him that being himself is enough. And you taught me, his voice caught, you taught me that being present is the only thing that really matters. Elena's hand trembled as she took the box. It's beautiful. There's an inscription on the back of the charm. She turned it over, squinting to read the tiny letters. For the one who sees them. Her eyes filled with tears. Marcus, your mother was right. Taking care of children is the most important work anyone can do. You see Daniel. You see who he really is, all his quirks and fears and brilliance. And somehow, he took a breath. You see me too. The real me, not the CEO or the widower or the absent father, just me. A tear slipped down Elena's cheek. I should really go, she whispered, but she didn't move. Marcus stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. Stay. Not forever, not tonight, just stay for 5 more minutes. Let me say what I've been afraid to say. Marcus, this is complicated. I work for you. Daniel needs stability, not confusion about what we are to each other. I know. And I'm not asking you to figure that out right now. I'm just asking you to know that you matter. To both of us. Not as an employee, as family. As he stopped himself before he said too much. Elena reached up and touched his face, her palm gentle against his cheek. I know. And that terrifies me, because I can't lose this. I can't lose him. Or you. You won't, Marcus promised. Whatever happens, whatever this becomes, you're part of our lives now. That's not changing. She stood on her toes and kissed his cheek, soft and quick. Thank you. For everything. For seeing me too. Then she was gone, leaving Marcus standing in his office, the ghost of her touch still warm on his skin. That night, he checked on Daniel before bed. His son was fast asleep, the stuffed lion tucked under his arm, a new book, something about dragons, on his nightstand. The nightmares had become less frequent. The bruises had faded. The quiet, withdrawn child was slowly being replaced by a boy who laughed and asked questions and wasn't afraid to take up space. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, watching his son sleep, and felt Sarah's presence so strongly it took his breath away. He imagined what she'd say if she were here. Probably something like, "About time you pulled your head out of your ass." He smiled at the thought. Sarah had never minced words. "I'm trying," he whispered into the darkness. "I'm really trying." And for the first time since she died, he felt like maybe, just maybe, that was enough. 6 months later, Daniel's volcano project won second place at the science fair. Eleanor and Marcus stood together, cheering louder than any other parents, while Daniel beamed with pride. That night, they celebrated with pizza and ice cream. The three of them crowded on the couch, watching a documentary about Pompeii that Daniel had been begging to see. When Daniel fell asleep between them, his head on Elena's shoulder, Marcus met her eyes over his son's sleeping form. Neither of them said anything. They didn't need to. Some rewards couldn't be measured in money or titles or grand gestures. Some rewards were simply this: a child sleeping peacefully, secure in the knowledge that he was loved and safe. Two adults learning that healing wasn't a destination, but a journey. And a family, unconventional, still finding its shape, but real nonetheless, built not on obligation or compensation, but on something far more valuable. They had built it on love. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.